Hello, Lydia here. I make sewing patterns and sewing content, and today I'm going to show you some of my favorite serging or overlocking tips.
Start your overlock stitch right. So take the tail and pull it taut and bring it under where you're about to sew. Now, put your fabric in there, and you can get the tail in the way of the blade so that it will cut off. And just sew, baby, sew. And then this little tail, we're gonna pull through here. So I've got a needle with a really big hole in it. I'm just gonna feed it through. And then I'm going to get this through the needle hole. Done. And then just pull it back through. And you're golden. This is the glorious start. No hanging tails, it's all concealed in there. And this is the glorious end.
And you may want to know how to have a flush overlapped overlock stitch. So you want to hold out the tail that you started it with as you sew and cut it off as you're sewing, then sew a few more stitches without cutting the edge of the original stitches. Then stop, lift the foot and move the fabric to the back of the stitch. Put the foot back down and sew the tail. And this just gives a nice flush, neat edge. And I will show you later how to cut the tails so that they don't just unravel. My seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch, but my serger sews at 1/4 inch, so I have to cut off 1/8 on my serger. To start and end a stitch in a seam on the round, I snip out a small section that is 1/8 of an inch deep and start my stitch in this section. Then, when I come to the end, I can finish cleanly without cutting into the starting stitches. This is how I like to remove an overlocked stitch. So I was working on my Celeste frog pattern and ended up stitching on the wrong setting, so I had to take it out. So there's the back side of the stitch and there is the front side. And to undo this, I'm going to cut the top loops of just the front side all along the seam. Don't cut the backside loops. So what you're seeing here is the front loops cut and the back loops intact. This is very important. This step does take a bit of time, but the result is so much cleaner than just hacking at it with a seam ripper. Okay, now that that's done, I'm turning to the back and grabbing the end tail of the back loops and just pull. Sometimes it gets stuck, so just use your snips or seam ripper to untangle any snags, otherwise it will be a breeze. Then turn to the front and grab the two tails of the double stitch and pull to totally remove them. Again, sometimes, especially at the start, there's a little bit of a snag, but it's usually an easy fix. Then shake off the little bits that are left and you're done. Here's another way to remove an overlock stitch. I prefer using this method with lightweight woven fabrics only, as I find jersey is a little bit too bulky and snaggy for this. First, cut the tail so that you can unravel it. Then grab the two straight stitch threads and pull gently as if you were gathering. Move the fabric along the stitch until the threads are free. After that, the rest of the threads will come off easily. You can do this with jersey. I just recommend doing only one thread at a time. Otherwise, check out my other method in episode 3. A basic lettuce hem is all in the differential feed. Reduce the speed to its lowest, which means the needles will go faster than the feed dogs and ultimately the fabric, allowing the fabric to stretch. As I feed the fabric in, I also stretch it just a little, and it gives me this glorious lettuce dream of a Celeste frock, which by the way is a pattern you can get on my website. Are you tired of ribbly seams when overlocking stretchy knits? The answer to this is so easy. It's all about differential feed.
This little knob gives you access to the speed of those little jagged things called feed dogs that pull the fabric towards the needles.
So with my first rectangle of jersey, I'm going to sew with the default setting. And I'm getting a ripply effect with the seam. So now I know that the feed dogs are not going fast enough.
So if I increase this differential feed, the feed dogs will pull in the fabric faster than the needles, almost like a gathering effect, which will compensate for the fabric wanting to stretch out naturally as you sew.
And you can see the difference between these two pieces. One is much longer because it was stretched out, and the other didn't stretch out and kept its original shape.